Hey guys, it's DK back, and I'm going to read some of Chasing Christmas for you all today again. I hope everybody has had a nice day. Just one second. I hope everybody's had a nice day, and um, it's been rather hectic here today. I've been wrapping Christmas presents already. I know it's quite early, but I need to get it done out of the way. I have quite a big family, so there's always that. But anyway, I'll get through with some of the recap stuff, and in case you're only catching up and whatnot. So yeah, um, if you weren't here last time, you basically didn't miss much. It was quite a short chapter now, but in the last chapter, Noah was thrilled that his aunt and uncle Andy had arrived, and we get to meet Elijah and his family, who have been unfortunately taken in by Noah's mother and due to an accident. And of course, as time progresses and he kind of gets more accustomed to Elijah being there, the family finally arrive, and Elijah is kind of inundated with hugs and a warm welcome that he wasn't expecting to get from Noah's family. And of course, they finally meet Lucas, and they both play a prank on poor old Lucas. So, yeah, we're going on to chapter 4, I believe. And so this is basically what's coming up, just a little tidbit so you have an idea of what's coming up. So Noah and Lucas and Elijah take up position in front of a TV in Noah's bedroom, and they end up playing 7 Days to Die, which used to be a great game. I haven't played it in so long. I'm a bit of a gamer, so yeah, I had to make it into the book. And that's until the twins ultimately come over and saying, they want to take part, but of course, not enough controllers. So they are forced to find an alternative that can benefit everybody, I suppose. And that kind of gets them all geared up for a snowball fight, which takes place in the following chapter. But we'll get to that in a minute. If you didn't know, I'm giving away free copies, signed copies of Chasing Christmas, and all you have to do is be on my mailing list in order to get that. The closing date is the 10th of December. I'm going to try and ship them all out for the 13th of December before the international shipping closes and whatnot. So I'm going to try my best to get it out to you. If that's something you're interested in getting, just make sure you pop over there and sign up. At the end of every stream, I make the following stream for the next day. So I'll be making tomorrow's tonight. And I update the links on Linktree and my website periodically every single day. And yeah, and if you're also looking for make sure you don't miss a live stream event, you could probably subscribe to me. I'm pretty sure YouTube drops like a reminder or something like that. It's been so long since I've done any of that, but I'm pretty sure it happens. But anyway, how has everybody's day been? I'm going to just probably wait for a few minutes to see whether more people are going to show up, and then I'll get cracking on the book. But while we're waiting, I thought it'd be kind of cool to show you a few bits and bobs. Now, I haven't exactly figured out. I know there's a feature on YouTube Live. Oh, yeah, Ethan. Yeah, you're from Australia. I forgot about that. So yeah, your day would be just starting. My day is just about ending. It's 10 o'clock here, so it'll be snoozy time soon. Well, it's a Saturday night, so we'll be a little bit more on. It's maybe 1 o'clock. But anyway, I just thought it'd be kind of cool to share this. I haven't figured out how to change the mirror orientation on the live streams just yet. Basically, it's so that you can see writing and stuff the right way around. I'll figure it out though. But I thought this would be kind of a cool thing while we're waiting to show you. This is the birth, basically, of Chasing Christmas. Um, and basically, it just says up here the opening. Chasing Christmas originally began as a choose your own adventure, which never really panned out for me. I want to always go back and do a choose your own adventure for another book, but it actually happened for Ghouls, Goblins, and Ghastly Boys, which is my only erotica piece. If you're interested in that, you can find that on my website, but it's under the pen name or pseudonym as Tom Deacon, because I want to keep my DK Daniels stuff slightly separate from the likes of that. But it's I had a pretty good time writing that, and it was something different, and the story was sitting there, and I decided to add on to it. But anyway, the original Chasing Christmas started off as a choose your own adventure, and it's just funny what made it into the actual book when I started writing it, because here it gave you the option of brushing your teeth and eating in the bedroom and sleeping, and then eat, and then go to a restless night, and then of course your nightly activity. And all of these three things kind of made it into the first chapter, well, the original first chapter before the prologue. And yeah, it's just funny when you start to see the way things were panning out. And I made it to like 10 pages and I just gave up on it. It was yeah, it's funny in that retrospect. I believe this is on Patreon, I think. So if you're interested in more behind the scenes content, you could probably check it out on the likes of Patreon. If you're actually interested in that, I've been also been thinking of maybe doing standalone little copies of like for Amazon and whatnot, of behind the scenes content for all of my books. Like if you're interested in the plotting notes and stuff like that, I'm thinking of maybe releasing them as like little tie-in copies. If anybody's interested in that, let me know. I'm not too sure whether anybody would be, but you know, it's just that. FYI, sorry in advance, but my my handwriting is absolutely terrible. I guess my brain works a lot faster than my hand can keep up, so there's that. But yeah, so there's that. We have Hamish, I believe it is, and Eggsy. I think I got the name right this time. Our two mascots. They will be seeing us through to the end of our uh, live reading, and yeah, I have a sneaky suspicion that Hamish back there is getting a bit too excited about the book every evening, because I can hear him whispering in my ear right now, and he's already saying, "Just get on and start with the bloody book." So I think I might listen to his advice and I'll actually start the book. So, um, if you have your book there, grab your copy and we'll try read along together. Um, but yeah, before I start, if you actually have a copy, thank you so much for buying it in the first place. But if it's not too much effort or hassle, if you really liked it, consider dropping a review on Goodreads or Amazon or wherever you got your copy. It's a big achievement to, you know what I mean, have more people to buy my book, and having a review is a surefire way to make people feel confident in what they're buying. I am going to update this copy of the book though, so it is going to be in a better quality. But yeah, it doesn't have to be a detailed review, or just even a rating is a big help. A lot of people, they buy my books and they forget to, you know, rate them, and um, it's just a very simple thing to do, and it helps me reach better rankings and stuff. Hi, Christopher. It's nice to see you again. But okay, so we're on chapter 4, which is page 76. If anybody has the paperback book, but okay, so let's get in now. Okay, so heading for the door, I decided to start the official fun of Christmas on its way. Are you guys down for a game of 7 Days to Die? I asked. What's that? Lucas asked. Glancing back at him smugly, I thought, he can't be serious. But Elijah cut in. It's a couch co-op zombie game, Elijah said with a smile. God, his perfect smile. The symmetry of his jawline is excruciatingly painful to look at. Every time Elijah smiles at me, Or, well, since he has started beaming his smile, it gives me butterflies. I must say, I'm happy that Elijah is feeling alright about this turn of events. Even in his circumstances, we're unfortunate. He has somehow shifted his mood and he seems to be in better spirits since his shower. Speaking of which, Elijah does look damn good in my clothes. My hoodie is a little baggy on his frame, but it fits him snugly, and that is honestly too cute to ignore. I must be grinning like a village idiot because he looked kind of nerdy in the thing, and well, his appearance is just adorable. And maybe I should stop daydreaming and say something back. Yeah, that's right. It's been out a while, but maybe you'll like it. I thought you would have played it, considering you're what I call a gamer, I emphasized. Ha ha, Lucas rebuked sarcastically with a scrunched up face. Okay, let's do it, Lucas said, clasping his hands together. With that, the three of us left the bedroom and crossed the hall to my room, pushing the door open all the way, which is totally unnecessary. I wait for the boys to come in and then close it. Sauntering to the TV mounted on my wall beside the window, I reach up onto the dresser and hit the power sensitive touch button, and then the console beeped, and a blue line bled from inside the machine and lit the center point of the piece of hardware. The roar of the motor worked a little harder as the PlayStation booted up, and the familiar sound of the home screen sounded, and then we were finally at the user profiles. In the meantime, Lucas put on his glasses. I always find it weird since he never wears them any other time. However, the only times Lucas puts on his goggles is as if he's reading, watching, or playing video games. I knew Lucas already had a user account, so I decided to hit triangle on the DualShock and navigate it down to the option to make a new user. I clicked on the profile interface and then pieced together Elijah's name with the analog stick before proceeding to X. I then logged in and went straight to the game and launched the application, and within a few minutes, all three of us were working together to build a base. I focused on the building of our camp, while Lucas harvested local supplies like timber for wood and clay deposits to help with the construction of concrete and other commodities. All along, Elijah did a sweep of the outside perimeter, looting houses for food and seeds and anything else he could find. For the most part, the game was fun. All of us were working together with no questions asked. Nobody really cared who was who we were just enjoying a gaming session as guys. I had come to enjoy the company of both boys in my room. A mutual feeling is felt, and as I glance from Elijah to Lucas, I feel a warm emotion coming from within me. I shifted my weight on the bed to get more comfortable, and I felt something underneath my ass. Clutching the controller with my right hand, I reached under with my left and pulled out a plastic container pouch with the underwear I had given Elijah. The plastic had been opened, and one of the underwear slots was empty. I immediately jumped to the conclusion that Elijah was wearing the underwear I gave him. Trying to push the thought away, I threw the package on the bed and turned back to the game, hoping that the boner that was starting to take shape somewhere would go down. By the first hour, we had a basic house built and some supplies with a wall built around our base to protect us from the 7-day horde, which is basically the worst day of the game. Every 7 days, the game spawns a massive swarm of infected creatures, and you are given the task to try and survive the night. The more days you survive, the harder zombies are to kill, and the more menacing they get. After about 50 days, they can break through steel doors, climb walls, and break through concrete slowly if you don't kill them in time. There will be a hole in your wall in no time. When the 7-day hordes did come, a new atmosphere took over the room. Everyone worked together and protected each other. A giddiness took over the environment, and laughs and nervous shouts bellowed throughout the room as we struggled to keep the monsters at bay. At one point, a nervous cry escaped Lucas when he fell off the wall while shooting down at a horde of infected. Then he moved the wrong way and fell off over the wall and began to panic. The almost dread and fear of being killed was clearly felt from my counterpart and partner in crime as he squirmed about on the bedside and began to run further out into the pitch black wasteland. With nothing other than a torch held together with a few strips of cloth lit on fire, Elijah ventured outside the wall to retrieve and help Lucas, while I manned the fort. The two boys felt a new course of emotions, telling from how they both nervously scooted to the edge of the bed and began shouting in playful hysteria. Lucas somehow seemed a little more secure and relieved that someone is coming out to help him in a time of need. Lucas felt anticipation, I can only assume. He felt the safety of our walls to bring back a fallen comrade. Oh. I could see the short bursts of orange flickers off in the darkness. The two sources converged closer as the two boys drew nearer in the virtual character forms. Looking over at each other, then at the screen, I can see the both of them working together to get back to the base. In doing so, Lucas did the best he could, given his disadvantage, and Elijah helped in any way he could. We played on for a little more and continued our adventures. A little while later, a patter of feet trembled up the stairs, and my bedroom door swung open moments later. The two noisy blonde boys, bustling with an uncontrollable amount of energy, injected a newfound life of power into the room. We were beginning to grow tired of the game, and we were thinking, or more so I thought, of asking the guys, did they want to perhaps go outside for a while? But then the twins came to the rescue. As much as they are annoying, I must give it to them. They always show up when you need them just in the nick of time. What you doing? Adam said as he plopped down on the bed behind us. A series of tremors ricocheted throughout the bed from the weight of Adam's body, hitting it like a crash mat. Even though he was small enough and his body weight is pretty much non-existent, he had enough power to his touchdown to make us wobble. Turning around to him, I glanced at him. He had himself propped up using his arms on his stomach. Getting away from the thing one and thing two, Lucas retorted. Hey, I'm not a thing, Ben rebuked. Yes, you are. You're as annoying, if not more annoying, than those things in Cat in the Hat, Lucas cut in. Turning his head slightly toward me, he let out a smirk of bemusement. Lucas was obviously trying to rile up twins. They were annoying when they wanted to be, but hey, Lucas liked to annoy them. And if there is a textbook of rules somewhere written out in the worldwide universe, plague and torment your little brothers would have to take the top spot for priority. Elijah turned over at me from the TV screen and smiled. That Lucas was toying with the twins, and funny enough, it never ceases to amaze me how the twins never catch on to that they are being played. Lucas has been doing this every year he has been here, and I'm assuming that he is doing it when he is at home too. So how come the twins can never seem to put two and two together and see that they are just being tormented for Luke's pleasure? The twins are precisely identical. The blonde mops, shaggy, wiry hair, one laying comfortably on the bed and the other standing, had no virtual inconsistencies between the two of them. Ben's hair is a little shorter looking than Adam's, but other than a beauty mark on Adam's right dimple, the two are an exact carbon copy. About 10 years old, Adam would have been the firstborn by 6 minutes, and he somehow is proud of that achievement. He took on his role of being the older brother for his younger double, even though he was indeed not the oldest child in the house, but 6 minutes made him feel like he had an extra playing card in life, when considering Ben, after all, he arrived 6 minutes late, as he put it. Though They both still didn't stand a chance when it came to Lucas. He, after all, was the king of the age bracket, gaining a reputation for being the most pretentious 13 and a half, and yes, the half, at his age. In this day and age, 13 and a half is a huge deal in such rivalries. I even feel like I'm ready to be a man, but I'm not quite a man yet, if that makes sense. I'm available for bigger and bolder things, yet it all comes down to the responsibility. Personally, I'd rather snack and game all day rather than doing chores or helping other people with something that I have no benefit for in the long run. Although, as Mam would put it, she'd say, Noah, that's very selfish of you, and you need to be willing to meet people halfway. And sure, I do. I meet people halfway all the time. Well, try to. I've grown up since she actually said that to me. I think that was 3 years ago, but don't hold me accountable for that actual time and date because my mind is like a sieve. On the other hand, I have taken on a little more responsibility and other commitments. I helped the neighbors last year shovel their driveway. Well, I don't think I could live down the shame of turning a 60 or 70-year-old down when they asked me to clean their lawn for some money. As far as money goes, yes, that is a nice, nifty profit, even if it is a back-breaking, sweaty, and clamoring process. Actually, come to think of it, I think it would be kind of cool to possibly get outside for a little while with the cousins and, well, Elijah, and with Elijah. Because I certainly don't have any games that can support 5 players, and for one, I think I have been cooked up inside the house for long enough. Maybe building a snowman or having a wicked snowball fight out in the yard is just what I need. Well, I guess everyone could use some fun. That way, nobody is left out of the fun. Jeez, you don't need to be all crybaby. I'm just messing with you, Lucas protested as Ben became a little defensive. This is how I always imagined the Christmas holidays going. The holidays are full of love and disagreements. Ben just sulked and glanced down at his feet. Brooding, he became a little hot headed, and he looked like he was going to explode just about any minute. Sure, I didn't see anything terrible depriving of Lucas teasing his brothers lightly. Thomas used to do it to me all the time. Sure, it does get old being called a mistake. It is probably not what anyone wants to hear, though at the other end, Thomas would go out of his way to make me smile and laugh if I ever took it offensively, and I might have done so when I was a little younger. I guess being 14 now is almost like you have a hardened outer shell to deflect all the nasty words the world throws at you, but not your brother. Those words burn like a brand being applied to your bare skin. Only one can imagine the sheer pain of that. The mental, the melting, the sizzling of our skin as the tiny picture on the end of the heated metal singe and imprints its message on your hide. I somehow wonder if skin can melt like cheese if that were a thing, or does it smolder like when you're cooking meat? Though, just as always, Lucas somehow knows how to make or mend all his dumb and foolish mistakes. Leaning across the bed to Ben, Lucas said, Hey, I'm sorry, okay? I was just messing, Lucas replied softly. Lifting his hand up, Lucas extended his right index finger. Hey, pull my finger, Lucas stated. Ben lifted his head from the slouched position and stared quizzically at his brother. Somehow, I know he is going to do the old routine of farting when you pull his finger. Oh God, he's going to let one rip, I thought. If anybody had any sense, they would clear out. But for some reason, I found myself unable to move, regardless if the fart was going to be a total stomach churner. Ben reached out with his encircled hand and gripped Lucas's finger. A loud and obnoxious and deep burp filled the room. Ben didn't exactly know what to do. He seemed frozen at the unexpected joke. I think everyone was expecting him to fart, but the burp was kind of funny, and my god, was it loud. A second later, the blurry eyes started to retreat, and Ben started to chuckle to himself lightly. His shoulders trembled back and forth as a warm chuckle took hold of the silence in the room. Soon I began to feel a little familiar tingle in my chest, and I began to let go of a foolish laugh at the bluntness and rudeness of Lucas's display. Soon the entire room was immersed in a warm, laughing fit, and that had the whole room getting on for the first time since the twins walked in. After the laughter subsided and everyone calmed down, I decided to break the idea of going outside in the snow for a little while. Hey, does anyone want to go outside and do stuff in the snow? I asked. Stuff in the snow? Lucas teased. You know what I mean, I nervously added, while giving him a playful nudge. No, I don't know what you mean. What stuff do you want to do in the snow? Lucas asked seriously for a moment. Turning red, I glanced around and was quickly taken aback with all the eyes on me. Snowmen? Snow fight? The normal stuff, I said. Oh, I see. I wasn't aware there was other stuff you could do, he teased and gave me a playful shove. Obviously embarrassed and unsure how to handle that sort of gesture, I glanced down at my lap, feeling uneasy. Then Lucas sat up and turned around, facing outwards on the bed. Placing his hand on mine, Lucas said, I'm winding you up. Let's get out and have a snow fight, he screamed. Suddenly, everyone in the room jumped to their feet. A giddiness accumulated in the small circle around me, and even Elijah stood, anticipating what was going to happen next. All right, go get your jackets on, I said, and suddenly everyone exited the room except Elijah and me. We are left standing with nothing but the space of where Lucas had been standing in between us. Elijah gave a goofy grin before reaching for his suitcase and rummaging around inside it. I walk over to my wardrobe and fish out a hat and a pair of gloves. I momentarily look over to Elijah and decide to fish out a spare pair of gloves and a beanie. Starting back over to him, his confidence had dwindled a slight bit. It was evident that he had no hat or gloves. With that discovery, I handed mine to him. Here, you can have these, I said. Bashfully, Elijah locked eyes with me and said, oh, thanks, Noah. His tone was chirpy and happy. Even though he didn't quite belong, we still treated him like he belonged. Drawing the hat on over my head and sticking my fingers snugly into the gloves, the both of us started down the stairs, as Elijah did the same with his new gloves in hand. Soon we were joined by Lucas, who came bounding down the stairs, and eventually two twins who floated out from the kitchen into the hallway. I decided that the hall was the best place to meet everyone since it was the central point in the entire house. Everyone had to walk through here in order to get somewhere, so it made the most sense to be here, and it was apparent. The twins had a soft puffer jacket. The twins each had a soft puffer jacket, which equally seemed warm. Looking at the both of them, each of the boys showcased freshly woolen knitted hats from Grandma. She had sent them all to us. A new beanie type hat that she knitted previously, about some 2 weeks beforehand. I decided I'd wear mine later in the Christmas holidays. Maybe tomorrow I'll start wearing it. Because she did, after all, make it for me, and it is incredibly sweet of her to do so. So I've got to at least try and wear it, even if I don't like it. Yeah, some years there have been bad knits, but this year is kind of awesome. It's really cheerful and festive in appearance. The twins seemed like an exact duplicate. 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 Ah, you know what I mean. I can't say the word. Duplicate. Duplicate. There we go. As they always do. Lucas fashioned a red gillet with a baggy grey hoodie underneath for an extra layer of warmth. He had somewhere found the time to change the entire top proportion of his body while everyone else hurriedly got ready. His lower still seemed unscathed. Wearing a red fur trapper hat with a series of faded black lines, it made him look cute somehow. I don't usually think of such thoughts, but my cousin seems, I don't know, cute in some way. The way the gillet and the head garment complements his dress sense right now is almost impossible to explain. I don't see why I need to tell it to myself, but I guess if I don't, I'll never be able to explain why my cousin seems cute. I think it's the way he presents himself. His soft appearance, his long eyelashes, plump cheeks, and babyish. Think of it, Elijah has some of the exact same things I just checked off on my mental list, though he is a little extra special. Sure, he has the baby face and the long eyelashes and the gorgeous eyes. Even his ass is super round and plump. I'd never tell him that. Some thoughts need to remain private, you know? Somehow, to me, that seems almost too naughty to say out loud, and I most definitely wouldn't want someone to hear the deepest and darkest confusions of my hormonal brain. That would be like signing your death sentence. Why would you want someone else to know something that you hardly know anything about yourself? Somehow, that just rings true to me. Maybe it's not the same for everyone, but I'd want to understand at least what's going on inside my head before I'd let someone else into my mind to mess with. Girls are always on about how boys are so overrated and how they play mind games with girls, how they act like they are not interested. Though I think girls come off on the wrong foot. It's just the confusion about what to do with the information when boys understand it. The information is potentially embarrassing for us, and if we cannot understand it, we're not going to pursue a damn girl if we can't explain why we like them, or at least question it first. I, for one, am a boy, so I can relate, but I also feel like, I don't know, similar to a girl. Sometimes I just want a boy to walk up to me and talk to me. What if all boys could possibly be like me and feel like me, be thinking the same thing? What if the boys were too uncomfortable or not ready to talk to a girl, or more importantly, would account for how boys do not like to be the first to make a move? Am I right or am I right? Maybe not, but still. With the off with the off-track mind-boggling confusion aside, Elijah stood patiently behind Lucas. My beanie, securely placed, slouched, and relaxed upon his head, he observed the two twins and what they were wearing. Somehow he seemed to be examining their clothes. It was almost as if he was trying to figure out if he liked the style of the younger boys. I, for one, remember when I was their age, and I recall never having such good clothes to wear as everyday clothes, but Lucas somehow was able to match the everyday informal connection in an elaborate way. His sense of style never held an undesirable notion or disapproving glances from adults. His dress sense distinguished his personality, which resembled a hipster to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. Formal, casual, with a couple of cute beanies, sneakers, and jewelry is all you need for a starter pack to become a member of the hipster clan. Yet, something didn't feel right about labeling him as a hipster. So, for now, he's an indie kind of guy. He's not Medicore, but still familiar with plenty of talent for potential. I remember in fifth grade, Elijah playing piano like a young prodigy, and you can't quite forget a sight like that. An adorable hipster, I mean, an indie boy with raw talent and a pretty face. He could not be forgotten, for me at least, because he became my nightly fueled material for sweet release after a long day at school. I am always wishing I'd run into the cutie. I observed him grow, and since day one, Elijah has become more adorable and a hottie, even. But here we are now. He's in my house wearing my clothes with my family, and we're about to go outside to play in the snow. If this was somehow a horrible dream or heaven, I hope I never wake up. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, so we're on to chapter 5 now. Just get a drink. How is folks going? You enjoying the story so far? Yeah, the more I read now, I'm starting to get back into the book. I think it started off slow for me, but now as I'm getting into it, it's starting to it's actually starting to pick up, and it's getting better, and I'm getting into it. Let me see. Oh, I'm only 35 minutes in. Okay, so let me see. Do I go for another chapter? So that's 90 to 118. Right. I might go for another chapter. We're only 35 minutes in. Thank you. Okay, I might go for another chapter. Okay, so we're going on to chapter 5 now. But I'll just wait for a second. So, what was I going to say? Yeah, no, okay. So far so good. GNT in that bottle. What's GNT? Oh, gin and tonic. No, no, it's just water. I actually don't drink. FYI, if nobody actually knows that, I don't drink alcohol. um, I ironically, I'm probably one of the only Irish people who doesn't drink anything, because we have a stereotype here that we all drink, but that's a horrible stereotype. We don't all drink. I promise you that. But anyway, I hope you are all enjoying it. I'll push forward into the next chapter, and that should probably bring us up to about an hour. All right, boys. Are you all suited up? Mom asked, as she came from the kitchen clutching a scarf. Holding it out for me, I reached out and draped it around my neck, winding it about my nape and around my throat twice. I then plucked up my blue Timberland parka from the newel post at the bottom of the stairs and fumbled it on. With a sharp whoop from my jacket, we were ready to go outside. Funneling through the archway into the kitchen, we decided to go out into the backyard. Our garden is larger than our front yard, so go figure. Plus, there are more objects and obstructions to hide behind. The only thing I hate about having a snow fight is getting a compressed snowball to the face. I got one of those before and it busted my nose. It never happened to me before, and I don't intend for it to happen to me again. It is sore and unfair for anyone who gets an intentional one to the face. Having a snow fight is supposed to be fun. Sure, it can be competitive. That is the main reason for having one, but not going out to deliberately hurt someone because you reach a peak of satisfaction because of it. In single file, the boys trailed behind me, and I marched through the kitchen toward the back door. The table was full, and all the adults assembled around the table and the breakfast counter, talking and conversing about who knows what. But the main thing is, everyone is getting along for now. I have a feeling that a disagreement will happen between someone. If not the adults, then it's the kids. Because what is Christmas without hiccups? It happens every year, and it's just about how, when, and where. If I were to start placing bets on this, I would make a shitload of money. A nifty little racket, as Thomas would call it. He likes being in the insider loop because you can make yourself a sweet profit from doing nothing other than collecting bets. I can see something like that working out in the long run for everyone, actually. We can start placing bets on who will have a disagreement or a fight first, and raise the percentage on returns for the number of times that individual gets right. For example, if I were to place a bet that Lucas and I were to have a disagreement because he wants to throw a snowball above the waistline and I don't, then the winner would have to place their bet, like Lucas and Noah, backyard, snowball fight. Tightly, in single file, we huddled together as we passed through the door and out into the backyard. Lucas left his glasses on the counter before leaving the room, navigating down the cobble path, with impressions of pre-worn footsteps scrambled under our feet from usage. We turned out onto the main stretch of the yard, and we then stood with a fresh blanket of snow ripe for the picking, undisturbed by any members of the family. Deciding what to do, I decided to let it go naturally. I didn't bother to try and force things, and I thought that it would be better to play it by ear because such things end up more exciting when you don't plan them. Guys, just be careful beside the pool over there, I said, pointing to the left behind a red brick building. With that, everyone just nodded and we slowly split up. The cold is like an assault to the skin. Its harsh freshness and bitter nip from the ice cold temperature makes my nose slightly numb, and it began to tingle from the icy chill lingering in the air. The solid yet marshmallow substance under my feet soaked its way up through the layers of rubber and sock, dividing me from the snow and my bare foot against the millions, perhaps billions of tiny snowflakes. Glancing around the garden, the pine trees in the far corner of the yard are sugar coated with a fresh swath of white snowfall. The trampoline to the right of the trees is equally drenched lazily in a thick sleet slush build-up of flurry. The condition of the backyard is a drastic difference compared to autumn or summer. It's not every year it snows in Chicago this late in December. It normally starts in November. The last 3 years, it has failed to snow around the mid-November timeframe when snowfall usually comes, but not this year. This year, it started to blanket a week before Christmas, the latest it has ever been. It started off lightly, and before we knew it, we surpassed a quarter of an inch by day 2. Yesterday evening, I saw somewhere that it was around 5 inches of snow in most places, and continued snowfall is inevitable. Most snow, More snow, great, even though it will cause problems in a much larger perspective, but who cares? Snow is fun while it lasts. A cold shudder woke me up as I quivered from the cold touch in between the small cavity of my head and my torso. A clump of a snowball lay discharged across my left shoulder, and particles of cool slush descended through the gaps of my scarf and began its descent down into my jacket. Keeling over, I shook myself vigorously to shake off as much of the leftovers as possible. Sprinkles of glittering snow fell downward like rising flour with a repelled gust of wind. A rupture of laughter broke out among the group, and as much as I hated such things, the cold and uncomfortable snow getting inside my jacket, I could not contain myself. Laughter was bound to happen. Slowly, a smile broke out on my face, and then I started to chuckle while I'm flapping around on the spot. Elijah let a retarded, hysterical snort, and suddenly the entire group giggled even harder. His snort was not planned, or even the thought of the snort. I think it was the laughing. If that makes sense, we're laughing at the laughing. If someone put it that way, I guess they would think we have a couple of screws loose. I'm not sure if anyone else would relate, but the group of lads around me did seem to understand the funny side of the moment. It was not the snort. Well, partially. The snort was the amplifier, but it was not the main reason why we were all laughing. It's like one of those times when you laugh even harder at someone's laugh because they are laughing and it feels normal just to laugh. Or if you if you're standing around and someone begins to laugh, all you can do is smile because laughing is a universal indicator of not being able to control yourself and cannot help but smile. And if a chuckle comes from it, then that's just normal. That's a lot of laughing in the same chapter. um, a proudness took hold of Lucas, and he quickly hunched to the ground, retrieved another snowball. Not standing there like a total idiot, I dropped to my haunches, not a second behind him, and plummeted to the ground. Propping myself for support, I used my right hand's index and thumb to ease my descent. When I got to the ground, I'm not exactly sure how you make a snowball, if there really is such a thing as making a snowball. Following my instincts, an odd sensation came over me, and a l- I scraped together a lump of snow between the center of my two hands. I swept it together, plucked it up, and shaped it into a round ball. And compressing it for extra effect, I launched back to my feet as I continued to squeeze the mold in my hand into a harder, much more firm ball. Without holding back or thinking, I hurled it at Lucas just as he flung one at me. Molecules of tiny snowflakes ripped out of the ice ball in transition. Getting out of the way from the flying projectile, I lurched forward and Lucas hunched down again. The snowball impacted me on the right shoulder and made a dud thump before falling to the ground. Lucas had utterly bypassed my snowball, and somehow that ignited some sort of playful rage inside of me. I so desperately wanted to get him because my failed attempt had not been a good aim. It flew clean over his head and into the bushes behind him before exploding against the trees. Within a moment's notice, everyone scattered off into their own corners. It was made evidently clear that it was every man or boy, I should say, for himself. Elijah headed off to the left, the twins took off running to the right and around the pool, and Lucas crouched and backed away like Gollum into the bushes as he made his third snowball. I, for one, decided that it was not a wise move to stand out in the middle of the opening. It is a vulnerability that can't be ignored. Flipping around, I ran toward the prep area for summer barbecues, which was made from red brick. Somewhere underneath all the snow was the barbecue grill and seating, though when I raced around to the other side of the imprint left by the snow, I was relieved that the entire thing was not under a snow dune. The snow had only graced the top and piled up on the wall. The seating of the summer nook still had enough space for me to get down and hide from incoming snowballs. With only two entrances to come from, either the left or the right, this place offered decent protection from the sneak attacks because you'd be able to see either of the boys coming from either side. Plus, with the house as a backdrop, I can see who is coming from the reflection in the windows. The panes are so obscured by the stark white, you can make out the colours of the boys' jackets in the mirrored reflections. Somewhere on the right, I can see the twins' outlines as they ready themselves for an attack. Reaching down to the sleep between my legs, I lay slumped on the frigid ground. It is cold. The icy sludge is burning at my butt. Shuffling a couple of snowballs into place, I compressed them and placed them beside me, and then went to the next. Snow glittered silently around me as I nervously shot my head up, right, and then up to the windows, left and right, to make sure I was not going to get attacked. I could make out a red stick figure in the patio door to the right of me, which was a ways out. I knew he was coming this way. I knew the red was Lucas, and he was merely evil when it came to snow fights. He never took challenges fairly. Although the twins never did either, the twins always worked together, which I guess in a way twins are typically wired that way So go figure. Though no, Elijah, not a sign of the cutie. Elijah completely disappeared, and to where, I have no idea. Scurrying like a dog, I placed my right knee in front of the left and wagged into the small cubby space under the metal structure for the table and all the way into the darkest corner of the nook. Curling up into the small area, I realized my snowballs were outside and that would let Lucas know I'm here. That, combined with the apparent scuffling of sleet all the way in here, would lead him directly to me. Geez, I thought, I would never want to commit a crime and risk leaving my DNA behind. I can only imagine that I'd be a horrible criminal. I'd probably leave so much evidence behind me that they wouldn't be knocking on my door only 20 minutes after I commit the fricking crime. Placing both my hands down in front of me, I dragged myself forward towards the daylight. Gently, I peeked my head out and looked towards the right to make sure he was not here already, though I could hear the crunch of the snow, and that meant he was still looking for me. With my heart in my throat, I reached out and encircled my arms around the small, clumsy pile of snowballs. Cupped safely in my arms, I guided them under the table with me and then flung them to the back into the dark behind me before lurching forward again. Using my hands, I sanded as best as I could away at the snow. Trying to distribute it equally, I spread out the snow so that my footprints and drag marks of me crawling like a wounded soldier would be gone. Before I could think of anything else, I leaned into the darkness as the crunch turned directly onto the same path as me, and teasingly took its time as it approached. Keeping my eye on the snow covered ground outside my bunker, I let my hand wander aimlessly in search of a snowball. With confidence, I picked up a mushy solid concoction of snow and ice from the unassorted pile of snowball ammunition and braced myself for an attack. Lucas is not in any way stupid. If anything, he's really smart at this sort of game. He always became a hunter of sorts, and he always excelled at finding the prey, which always ended up with someone crying, but it was fun nonetheless. The footsteps treaded slowly, and then a dark black foot with a Nike Air Max sequin, the second generation, plopped down in front of me, and then an accompanying shoe matching the second crossed over and came to stand in front of the other. The person stopped moving, and the feet shuffled to the right and then to the left as if the owner of them were looking for a target. I couldn't quite remember who was wearing these shoes, but I know them anyhow because I've wanted a pair for a while. Mom said I could buy a pair in the January sale since I already bought my Christmas clothes. But all the same, I cannot remember for the life of me who has been wearing these shoes. The boy standing there didn't seem to show any indication that he knew I am down here. Or if he did know I was here, then he was doing a good job at pretending. It was definitely not one of the twins because where one goes, the other one is always bound to follow. And just to make sure that thought was rock solid, I glanced up through the cracks above my head to see if the twins had planned an ambush, but I could not see either of them. Sitting quietly, I decided to lean forward toward the individual. He obviously didn't know I was here and I had the advantage. Edging closer to the figure, I burrowed toward the exit, using my hands along the cold ground and stopped shy of the entrance. Setting my snowball down, I had a wicked idea form in my mind. Something that every boy hates happening to them. Well, I'm assuming every boy hates it, and that's getting pantsed. Lifting my two hands from the ice sludge, I raised them toward the boy and as high as I could go before I evidently dart out and do the embarrassing deed. Raising my hands to the roof of the table, I snatched out and gripped onto a pair of skinny jeans and tried to rip them from the mysterious boy standing there, though the pants didn't seem to falter. Almost instinctively, I reached for a snowball and smudged it in against the guy's groin and ducked out from under the table and ran towards the steps past the brick barbecue. A second later, a snowball caught me in the shoulder plexus and winded me, but I kept running and didn't dare look back. As I'm running for the brick shed at the side of the yard, I recall giving Elijah a pair of blue skinny jeans. Darting into cover, I heard a shuffling of feet to my right. Dazed and turning from fright, Lucas hurled a snowball my way. I shot towards the wall and abruptly trashed against the wall violently before falling to a knee. Bolting toward him, he started to turn. Oh, sorry, bolting towards me, he started to turn and run. Even though I didn't have a snowball, he still knew I'd probably pounce on him and put him head first down into the snow. To be honest, I didn't really know what I was going to do when I caught up with him, but one thing became evidently clear. Well, actually, two. With my heart in my throat and my adrenaline levels off the charts, I figured that Elijah was actually the boy's pants I tried pulling down. Something about that seemed mischievous. The second is obviously Lucas. Since last year, he has gotten a great deal faster. I find it a little harder to keep up with him. He's like Forrest Gump, minus the limp. He's on turbo or something, the way Forrest Gump took off like a rocket when he started running. Exiting the side of the brick house, I followed Lucas, determined to get him back. Sifting through the trees in the bottom of the garden, we brushed through several trees hurriedly, dashing into the mist of the cluster, the branches of the soft pine trees stroking my chest and stomach. Snowflake droplets drifted down over both of us from the top portion of the trees and drenched us in a fresh powder of snowfall. Lucas, Lucas pushed out his arm to avert a branch that was above his head, and without thinking, the branch flung back and clocked me in the side of the skull. Crouching down, I held my hand to the top of my head, a little stunned. I wasn't sure exactly what happened, but I knew something from the tree had hit me. It never happened before, even after all the times we used to run through here when we were kids, and it never occurred to me then, so why now? Lucas apparently stopped running and turned back. Are you okay? He breathlessly asked. It wasn't that the smack from the tree was sore, it was just unexpected. It wasn't as painful as I first thought it was. Still, it did daze me a little because there is a clear, starry feeling going on. I am feeling a bit better now. I'm feeling a bit better now. I'm taking a moment to recover, though I found I had a trick up my sleeve, if that's okay to say. I know it may be laughable or insolent, as Mom would put it, but I have an advantage here. I can play the sympathy act to catch Lucas off guard. When we were little, we always roughhoused it, so the smack from the branch and the sharp bang of the wall was not exactly new. I remember our parents being upset with us because we always had a series of bruises from God knows what source. The fun times we had, it's a vague memory. I think, I said, adding a little bit of a moan as if to indicate I was in pain. Lucas drew closer, curious and attentive. The shouting outside the bushes took our mind off what was going on. The boys outside were having a scrap with the snow, and seeing this as an opportune moment, I let my hands drop, crunched a snowball together, and lashed it at Lucas's stomach. In the snow-covered biome, one had plenty of ammo to torment his friends with and cousins with, and I found that entertaining. Just like that, before Lucas took off without hesitation, and I stumbled forward from my hunched position and drove on after him. Pushing out from under the trees, we came back out into the open behind the trampoline, which is submerged in slush. I can make out the figures of the younger boys through the netting further down the yard. Day and Elijah were having a full on snowball fight, but I had no time to admire it. I was in pursuit of Lucas. Lucas pushed on, and like a game of cat and mouse we played in kindergarten, encircling the outer perimeter of the trampoline and back out into the yard, heading for the rest of the crew, a series of heartworthy laughs escaped Lucas He was getting a thrill out of me chasing him, and that made me stomp down harder to catch him. The other boys saw us coming back into the fight, and they quickly reintroduced us to the game by ceasing fire on each other and turning their attention to us. Somehow, Lucas and I had been made a team, and the both of us backed away together, firing snowballs in the direction of Elijah and the twins. It is funny how the turn of events had changed, and Elijah doesn't even seem to be embarrassed about what I'd done to him earlier. He just brushed it off and got back into the snow fight. His cheeks were beginning to flush red with the colder temperature. With each breath and stomp from the lads, they let loose an extended stream of condensation that floated upwards and then dissipated. Like a small smog deep Likewise, a small smog brewed deep within my mouth, and with every exhale I could not help but see an apparent white ghostly cloud that escaped. Both Lucas and me worked together rather than against each other for the first time since we came out here, and with each step we took backward, we found they were trying to push us into a corner. Both of us were aware of it and shifted to the right and did a U turn back up to them, which was a risky move because they really laid into us with the snowballs. I got a couple of hard, icy ones to my hip, and Lucas got one or two to the side of his face, but he slowly backed around then, and they were too dumb to see what we had done. We now had them in the same predicament they had us in a minute ago. I don't think they even knew they had us at a disadvantage when they were closing in on us, but they sure are in the same situation we had been in less than a minute ago. Guys, they're boxing us in. Go that way, Elijah said urgently. Elijah apparently saw what we were trying to do and he wanted to correct it, but Lucas dared to run at the twins, and the twins froze from fear and didn't bolt to the left and into the trees. Meanwhile, I closed the distance between Elijah and me. A ceasefire took place for a couple of seconds where nobody threw a snowball, and then suddenly the twins took off to the left. Hurling a snowball, Lucas shot after them, and with the distraction, Elijah hit me with a snowball. However, I cut Elijah off and then started to back him into a small encircle around the trampoline. He could not run away. The only place he could go is to keep back or run at me. I swapped low and plucked up some snow and pressed it together to form another ball, though I felt like I couldn't throw the snowball at him because he was unarmed. Any moment now, he would swoop down and collect a piece of sludgy sleet before retracting his arm to launch it back at me. Though he didn't. His ostentatious exterior protruded outward, and he played the cute guy, backing around the corner helplessly. He didn't reach or attempt to run away. He just kept backing away from me with each step I took toward him. He gave a couple of nervous smiles and gestured to me. Please don't, Elijah begged, and I lifted my hand to see if he would take off or even attempt to get a snowball to protect him. I teased and pretended to throw the snowball. I have no problem hitting the twins or Lucas with a snowball, but I haven't actually thrown anything to hit him yet. It's like a coping mechanism. There's a little voice inside my head saying, don't throw a snowball at him. He's too cute to get a snowball, just to about anywhere on his body. I wouldn't want to risk having a snowball hit him in the face. I should have waited. If I had known it was him that was standing by the table, I wouldn't have pushed a snowball into his groin. How would you explain that? I'm sorry for pushing icy snow into your junk. It wasn't an accident, but it was intentional because I thought you were Lucas, but now that changes because of Elijah. Why does it change? Because it is Elijah. I have no idea. But something about Elijah seems too special to annoy or even pester. I would happily do it again to Lucas, even though I love him. The both of us have an arrangement, that the force one to be driven insane by the other wins. Though I don't think either of us is there yet. Yet still, I can't help but wonder how much longer it would take to make either one of us go ape shit. I went to fling the snowball in his direction, and he flinched and he placed his hands over his face and peered out from the X that had formed. I could see his slender neck, blue eyes, and pearl white teeth, and the sight of that made me lower my guard. Instead, I chose to chase him. Starting for him, Elijah rushed backwards, stumbling as he turned around. He fell on his side a couple of rickety steps afterward. Lucas and the boys were running around on the far side of the trampoline, minding their own business. I saw that Lucas had things under control with that. I raced over to Elijah, who let out a sharp hiss as he had fallen on the steep root of one of the trees. From all the years of tracking in and out of that cluster, the small passage had gradually worn down, and the terrain was a couple of inches lower than the roots now. So some of the roots were beginning to show, and this is what he tripped over. Are you okay? I asked. I didn't mean to trip you, I spoke almost too apologetically. It was true. I didn't have any indication of this happening. Oh, I didn't have any intention of this happening. Just as I said, I didn't want to hurt Elijah. Something that hurts him happens. From now on, I should keep my opinions to the subconscious where I can't think of them. That way he can't be hurt. That way a more powerful power cannot piss me off by hurting him. If I don't know, they can't know, right? So yeah, that's what needs to happen. Though it's hard enough as it is to say that you wish he never got hurt, because a part of me deep down knows that no matter what I believe in, something will always happen, even if it's physical or mental. I hope whatever girl gets him does not break his heart. Leaning down to him, I finally crouched down by him. Elijah fumbled for a moment before lifting the jacket and the hoodie I gave him up to his chest and looked down. There was a small redness coming from the side of his hip. It didn't look cut or scraped, but knowing that it is an abrasion, I'm assuming that a bruise is going to form at a later point. Peeling off my glove, I reached out and touched his soft, silky skin, and as odd as it is, he is letting me do it. I brushed my fingertips along the sore area, and he didn't protest or moan. He just let me. I glanced up and locked eyes with him, and he directly looked at me. There was a hint of something in his eyes, though it's indescribable to me right now, and I don't think I can possibly understand what it was. It's like Elijah is grateful for the attention, and that seems plain weird to me. I'm sorry I pressured you into a corner, I said nervously. Elijah moved his arm, and I brushed his fingers with my bare fingers. It's my fault, but I'm okay, Elijah said with a hint of enthusiasm in his voice. Elijah gave a quizzical expression before he started fumbling about under me. He dragged his jacket and hoodie down over the pants and then started to clamber up. Extending my arm out, Elijah gripped it, and I then pulled him to his feet. He shook some of the loose flakes of powdered snow from himself and then smiled. Elijah straightened his clothes out and then asked, Do you want to build a snowman? And smirked. Sure, I replied. As long as I don't have to sing that dreadful song from Frozen, I then added. So give me a second. Jesus Christ, I'm only halfway through this chapter. Okay. He smiled bashfully and then was cut off by Lucas, who placed his hand on my shoulder and asked, How come you are not throwing snowballs at each other? Looking over at him, I asked, Well, do you want to build a snowman? A second passed and he smiled teasingly. Do you want to build a snowman? He sang in mockery. He broke away from me and clung to the side of the trampoline post and hung back. In a deep, brooding voice, Lucas went on to sing the next line of the song. He swung back dramatically and let out a phlegmy cough of amusement, which didn't sound at all healthy, though I let loose a smirk at the bluntness and the timing of Lucas's antics. He always manages to find the right thing to say or do at the right times. His inside jokes just add an extra layer to his gestures, and it breathed a new life into the conversation. It's funny, actually, that the first thing that came to my mind was the song from Disney's Frozen, and the initial inkling that came to his mind was the same song. I guess we both saw the movie when we were younger. I have to admit, it was kind of catchy, but I never agreed to that. Sorry, but I never agreed to that when I was younger, though. Now, it didn't seem too bad even to watch. Maybe I should rewatch it sometime. But on my own, of course. I can't be seen watching a movie like that. It would be so gay. Even though I am most likely gay. Oh. Elijah let out a snort, the way he usually does. I never clued in on that little detail before. I guess when you don't sit together at school or get to know someone accurately, you won't clue in on that little detail unless you're around them long enough to realize it. Lucas straightened his posture and then let go of the steel support for the net. I'll build a snowman if everyone else is doing it, Lucas gently said. Lucas added a smile to the equation as if it were assurance that he was down for it. The twins finally made their way over, pushing and shoving each other as they usually do, and stood behind us. Hey, why don't we have a snowman building competition? Elijah said. Everyone looked around at each other to see if the suggestion was a hint or to see if the suggestion was a hit or miss, and with no objections, I figure everyone liked the idea. With that, we all funneled back out into the central part of the backyard. We decided to break into two groups again. Elijah and I decided that we would be better together, and the twins and Lucas huddled around and decided to work as a team. With two teams, we broke into action. Popping back on my missing glove, we started rolling the first boulder. For the base of the snowman, I reached for the base of the for the base of the snowman, I started on the ground, hunkered down with an ordinary snowball, and started rotating it around in the fresh, glittery snow. I never really noticed how awkward it is to crouch and wheel a boulder in the snow. It is hard. My body heat is soaring something terrible. I'm beginning to get clammy, and gradually I'm getting to the point that overheating is inevitable. Turning the clumps of snow around between my hands and legs, Elijah started on the second ball for the second boulder. Eventually, I got the ball big enough, and I was happy that the bottom boulder was large enough. It did get drastically harder to move, but I was still able to roll it about without any problems. Standing a little breathlessly, I murmured to myself, okay, you just need two more balls. To which Lucas blurted out, why? Did you lose your balls? The entire group erupted into laughter, all but me. Elijah sniggered, and so did Lucas. I think I went redder than anything else, but I couldn't deny that the timing for the one liner wasn't well advised. I chuckled lightly to myself and dismissed the joke by giving a lazy, whatever gesture. Resuming my attention on the bottom boulder, I made sure it is well embedded into the ground so that the snowman would not topple over when more weight is added. I hunkered down and began to push snow in under the base to make it more stable. Peeping around, I saw Elijah coming back to me with the second boulder in its early stages. He was doing it in sections. Elijah went up in a line and then came back down in another line. He was making the most of the area we had. In the background, I could make out a figure on the roof of our house. It looked like Thomas. He did say he was helping Dad with lights, but I didn't expect him to be on the roof of all places. Maybe Dad had gone off to get Grandma while Thomas finished the job. Yesterday evening, Dad noticed that a strand of lights were not working on the roof, and he said that he'd fix them today. It's ironic that Thomas is given the job of setting the lights on the house when he dislikes doing anything. Dad is kind of like him, so Thomas is following in Dad's footsteps for sure. I am more like my mom, and I am more like my mom than I am my dad, and Dad is an excellent path to follow in. Not that Dad is a lousy parent, but Mom just ticks the homely boxes for me much more than Dad does. Dad is a hard worker, but Mom is a mom. Looking over at the boys, they had one boulder in place, and all three of them were taking turns making the next layer to the snowman. So, are you guys looking forward to Christmas? I asked, referring to Christmas morning. It is obvious that everyone looks forward to it. What is better than opening presents that have your name on them and all of them are just for you? I sure know I do, Ben blurted out enthusiastically. Yeah, only a couple of hours to go. Ben gave a smile and stopped rolling the ball, and Adam took over where he left off. Lucas stood on the spot beside Adam, pushing the boulder with his hands on his hip, and favoring his right leg, he slightly bent it at the calf. Lucas asked, "What did you ask for?" He nodded, looking at his brother, Ben, who had a gleeful smile, and then responded with, "I want a hoverboard. I recall how dangerous those things are. They have been popular since last year, and many people are still getting them. I don't think I would be someone to get one because of all the dangers I have heard associated with them. One of my friends fell and ended up with a concussion from it, not to mention the number of vines on YouTube videos I have seen with people falling off things." Vine. Uh, aren't those dangerous? I asked. I know it wasn't my business to say you should not get the contraption, but I'm curious as to what he will say. True, but I still want one, Ben said. He didn't seem to mind the cons of owning one. I remember reading someplace, me, read, I recall seeing somewhere that one of those things also caught on fire, so I hope that does not happen to me, and I hope he does not fall off and break something. I hope he has a good time on the thing for all I care. I'm only assuming that his mom has it in the trunk of the car and they will take it out later tonight. Lucas cut in before. I'll give you all but 5 minutes before you fall and break your arm, and you'll want to give it back there and then. Ben offered before I shifted my attention to Adam, who stopped rolling a massive boulder almost too big to be included on the snowman. Lucas didn't seem to mind, and he took over where Adam left off. Maybe they're not actually making a snowman like Elijah and I are. Can you help me? A voice came from behind. Turning, I looked down at Elijah and then rolled the second boulder with him to the edge of the first boulder. Together, the both of us grunted and we pushed against it and hoisted it up to the top of the first solid surface. As Elijah held it in place, I started to fill out the gaps between the first and second bolts to stabilize it. While doing the snowman, I called out, "Adam, what are you getting?" Glancing to him from Elijah and Adam and the snowman, Adam said, "Well, just a couple of games and maybe a drone." Clutching a chunk of snow in my hand, I pushed it into the crevice under the second boulder, and Elijah started off for the head of the snowman. Contemplating, I honestly agreed that out of the three lads over here, Adam is probably the best behaved one. I think everyone in the family knows what sort of person Lucas is, though I don't think he is as bad as everyone says or he lets on to be. Just a couple, Lucas smudgingly added. Just a couple, Lucas smugly asked. It is almost as if he knows that Adam would somehow get a little more than the rest of them, and he usually did get an extra gift most Christmases, though I doubt his parents actually did it intentionally. There was the odd time that Lucas got something extra, while the other two boys didn't get squat. Though Lucas is the sort of character that tries to get a reaction from just about anybody, and he generally means all well, even if it comes off another way. What about you, Lucas? I asked. Lucas pushed and heaved over the large boulder. The boulder was almost up to his waist, and I knew they were having the laugh about building a snowman. They were just messing around at this point, and I have to be honest, I like the goofiness. Just fun. I think I have everything I need, Lucas said truthfully. He is such a respectful person when it comes to what he values. However, he knows precisely what he values and what insignificant things are. I imagine Lucas growing up to have a large family and working really hard to support them. He'll be a family man sort of guy, I just know it. What about you guys? He asked as he stopped pushing to catch a breath. Elijah started. I wanted wireless Apple headphones and a couple of other things, but not anymore, he said glumly. An awkward silence he had an awkward silence had been introduced, and everyone just remained quiet and went about their things after Elijah said that. He did kill the vibe, and we couldn't exactly blame him for losing so much. I guess when you think of it that way, we are asking for useless junk that we don't need, and I think the material things should not matter. It's about the people around you, not the size of the gift. After all, is that how we measure love at Christmas? Hey, I love you, $20 worth of clothing. The thought is neat, but the morals are wrong. For the rest of the snowman building, Elijah and I completed our snowman. And if I must say, I think the both of us are a little proud of our creation. The boys didn't really build a snowman as such, they just flunked off and messed about. By the time we had put the carrot in the center of Snowman's face, I shifted my attention over to Lucas and the twins' creation. Lucas and the two twins were draped over a huge boulder that was possibly up to my chest, if anything, and that says a lot. I'm about 5'6". The boulder is gigantic. I've never seen anything as big as it before, and it is quite evident from the grunting coming from Ben and Lucas that it weighs more than they can push. Smiling at the sight before me, I asked, "Do you need a hand?" It does look fun, and I think I'd like to be included in on that, even if it was almost near next to impossible to move. With a nod from the boys, I motioned for Elijah, and both of us made the small distance to the boulder. The Saphir is impossible to describe how big it is. It's like something I've only seen in movies, of course. It wasn't something I'd seen in like it wasn't like something I'd seen in the likes of James Bond, where one of them rolls down the side of a cliff and they are the size of a car by the time they reach the bottom of the slope. Leaning against the snowball, or whatever you call it, we all put our back into it, and the ball tipped forward and began to roll without us needing to push it before it came to a stop. We took our place behind the boulder again, placing my soggy, snow ridden gloves against the back of the snow heap. I pushed when everyone pushed. Gritting my teeth together, we heaved before stopping again. Thinking about what we could do later, the idea of getting out of the house for a bit sounds almost too good to be true. So I contemplated for a few moments. I decided that I would follow through with my decision, but I hoped that the lads would come with me to meet up with Jack for a couple of hours. Maybe I could try to get Elijah something small for Christmas. I don't have a lot of pocket money left, but he deserves something to open for Christmas too. Hey, guys, what about after this we walk into town or something for a little bit? I asked. I'm still hopeful that the guys would accommodate me and they would accompany me. It would suck having to go on my own regardless if they didn't want to come with me. Plus, I need to give Jack his present, and now I have made my mind up to buy Elijah something if only I knew what he likes. All of us? Elijah questioned. Elijah seemed genuinely taken back. It was almost as if he was going to. It was almost as if I was going to leave him out of my plans. And on the other side of things, he is here for Christmas. And for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be his friend. So I can't pass this down. The friendship, I mean. I need to buy him something really nice, something that he will remember me for, and something that will make him want to be around me. People who buy stuff for people like people who buy it for them, right? Well, I hope he likes whatever I get him, because if he doesn't, then I'm screwed as to what to bribe him with. Huddling in around the ball for the third time, I place my shoulder against a gigantic boulder to add extra support for when I pushed it. Beginning to push it, everyone just did so without having first to consult with each other or without having to tell the group to go on three. Instead, I grunted as I pushed and said through gritted teeth, "Yeah, we can all go into town," I huffed. Letting the boulder go forward, I took a breather for a moment before continuing after the boys who started on ahead of me. The body heat in my jacket really has worked up my sweat levels, so, losing a layer, I doffed my hat and tossed it on the ground. The cool nip present washed over me. "It's rather nice," I conclude. "Okay, sounds cool," Elijah said. Glancing over to the left, Elijah pushed against the boulder with his purple to blue lips, condensation floating from his hoisted jaw and gritted teeth as a result of pushing with all of his might. Yet, through all of this expression, which could have been mistaken as if he was doing a number two in his pants, was a smile, which made me which made my heart flutter. Well, that's what it felt like. I'm not sure what the feeling is, but all I know is that it feels magical. Seeing if I got the same sensation with Lucas, I swiveled my head to the right to see him. With his back to the boulder, he pushed it with his back, which was a weird way to go about it, but still, the feeling didn't seem the same. The boulder took off from in front of me without my knowledge, and I stumbled somewhat forward before catching myself. Lucas said aloud to the group, "Okay, sweet, but can we ditch them on the way?" He gestured to the twins as he turned around to face the snow boulder. I think at this point, the boulder had gotten a little too heavy to push anymore. It's been a while, of course, and the ball was huge before we even joined in. Now it is enormous, like almost the height of me, and it's getting increasingly hard to push. "Hey," the Siamese twins blurred out in defense to catch each other. The two of them actually sound so familiar in tonality that it would have been hard to make out exactly who was speaking on their own if you were not looking at them. It is quite evident that the twins said it because there was a double bass to this statement, so it made it all the more audible from the both of them. "Joking," Lucas offered urgently. "Joking. Gah." He then sighed from frustration. "I guess when you're always teasing or plaguing people, you are very rarely taken up on your word when you actually mean it." Lucas would fall victim to this. It's not his fault he is this way. It's a large part of his character. It's become a big part of him that it would be like death for him to stop now. Besides, I don't think I'd ever like to see Lucas change. He is quirky in his own way, even though sometimes he gets on your case. Though for the most part, he is pretty chill about it all. Deciding that enough was enough, we called it a day. Without really saying anything, we just gave each other a couple of knowing looks and decided to head in for lunch. Swooping down, I plucked up my hat from the ground and brushed the small flakes of snow from the material and glanced up to the roof to see if my brother was still up there, but he had gone. Plus, my ears were beginning to sting from the cold. My cousins ran on ahead of me. Elijah lagged behind me as we walked down the yard toward the house. Everyone seemed to be in high spirits. Even Elijah is great, but before I got to the door, he leaned over into the space and asked, "Are you sure you guys don't mind me coming along?" Here, Elijah was afraid of coming along with me. The coolest, or one of the coolest guys in school that no one bothers, but that everyone wants to get to know, is asking if it's okay if he can come with us. Something is not right about that picture. Cool kids don't act this way, and for one, I guess that would be the way I should be acting, just having him hanging around, and he is not like that. I think this Christmas is going to bring together a whole lot of bonding that I have been only dreaming of since I first set eyes on him in school. Reaching the side entrance door, I held it open for Elijah. Nothing would make me happier than to have you come with us, I said, as he went in ahead of me. Turning around, I closed the door to the outside world and went about getting lunch. Okay, Jesus, that this is that chapter was long. I didn't realize it was that long. But yeah, we've crossed over now into an hour and 30 minutes or so, I think. I hope you guys have all enjoyed that. I'm probably going to call it there now in a few minutes, but yeah, so that's my eyes are going a bit funny in my voice. But yeah, let me know if you have been enjoying this. I'm still enjoying this, and don't forget, tomorrow I'll be on as well every day until I'm actually finished the book. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm trying to go till the 22nd. But as you saw here, I was able to read 2 chapters in in one evening. So maybe if I finish early with my thing, maybe I could read you a couple of my other Christmassy orientated stories for the extra 2 or 3 days if I finish slightly early. If you are interested in that, let me know. But yeah, I think that's probably about it. I want to say thanks to everybody who turned up. It was nice to see you, Ethan and Christopher and Terence. And of course, my boyfriend Damon, who's showed up to every live stream so far. But yeah, it means a lot to me that everybody has turned up, and yeah, I'm having great fun with this, and I feel like I'm getting thanks, Terence. But yeah, I feel like I'm getting a little bit more, comfortable with this. It's been so long since I've done anything like this, and I've kind of forgotten what it is to feel like to actually talk to people. But yeah, it was just an odd experience at the start, just talking to a computer. But it's good to know that some folks are actually there and you're listening and reading along with me. But yeah, if you like that idea, just let me know. You can probably even email me or drop me a message or in the comments or whatever it is. And I hope to see you again at 10 o'clock tomorrow, standard Irish time, or whatever, GMT time. But yeah, don't forget, if you're not on my mailing list or you know anybody that might be interested, just tell them to sign up, and yeah, that means a lot to me, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. So I'll leave yous and love yous, and thanks for tuning in again. And yeah, so good evening or good morning to wherever you are in the world. So yeah, this has been swell. Thanks. I'll see you now.